Today is the auspicious day of Gimel Tammuz, and I think the 9th of July? Maybe it's the 9th of July. And we're in chapter 4 of Shorish Mitzvos Tefillah. So we talked yesterday about what it means that God enclosed himself within the Sefirot, and he does that because otherwise we would be getting everything. My son told me there's a movie called Everything, something else, all at once. I don't know. We'd be getting all of God's revelation all at once, and that's no recipe for existence at the present state. We just can't handle it right now. So therefore he dishes it out, as it were, through the different Sefirot, and each one represents a different aspect of the way he acts. He acts differently through each one of the Sefirot, and that's the reason why there are Sefirot. And the names, we said, they refer to the light within the Sefirah, which is always the same. And as we said, those who are limited, we are limited creatures. We cannot fathom the infinite, except for maybe one of us whose name was George Cantor. He was a mathematician who thought a lot about infinity and the different levels of infinity. And if you ever want to read a popular book on that, there's a book by Rudy Rucker, which is called I don't remember what. I read it when I was like 16. And he does a very nice job of explaining George Cantor's work for laymen like me. So we cannot accept we cannot fathom, we cannot contemplate, we cannot integrate into us the infinite. Because that would turn us into infinite beings. And as infinite beings, I don't know who I am, right? The only reason that we are who we are is because we have some identity.
Which is finite. Which
is always finite and defined and so on. Now, סיבתי אותם בבחינת גבול ומשום שאור אינסוף מחיה אותן על ידי הכלים הנ"ל. But now he says something very interesting. He says the reason that we are finite is because the way we receive our life force is through these Sefirot, through these vessels of the Sefirot. שמהן בהגבלה. And it's from them that the limitation comes. In other words, we're bound inextricably our entire lives to the Sefirot. We can't, because we'd lose our conception of time and space and self, and all this would be gone if in some way we weren't connected. כמו שבאר זה באיגרת הקודש, על פי מאמר ואליבת צדקה כשריון, as this is explained in the Igros, at the end of the Tanya, the one is, I believe, Yotes, ואליבת צדקה כשריון, I don't remember which one it is. And the famous Igeris, the famous epistle that the Alter Rebbe wrote a few months before his passing, which is epistle 20 there, Igeris 20, and that's the one that a lot of people have trouble with because it's it seems to be a very, very complex Kabbalistic Igeris, like it's really highbrow, but it's not. It's actually, if you know what he's talking about, he says a big chiddush, but it's not that difficult. In any case, there he explained why the Sefirot, why the vessels of the Sefirot are limited. וכיוון שכן, הרי מבואר שההשפעה נמשכת מאור אינסוף לעולמות על ידי הכלים הנ"ל נקראים 10 ספירות האצילות, היא נעשית ומצטמצמת לפי ערך הכלי. And in any case, what we get is that the vessels of the Sefirot are limited, and now we understand why the life force, or the sustenance, the effluence that God is giving into the world through these vessels is always contracted. It goes through a tzimtzum, and you mentioned this yesterday, that this is the most important aspect of the tzimtzum, right? We usually talk about the first tzimtzum. The first tzimtzum is that Hashem contracts His infinite light. But the meaning of that really is that He contracts His infinite light, and the finite revelation of God is revealed. But that, by definition, means the creation of the vessels of the Sefirot. And that is what the first part of Eitz Chaim talks about.
That's a really good definition, by the way.
Right. It's meaning that the first, a lot of times, people have trouble with this, with the beginning of Eitz Chaim. Like, why did he suddenly move from something that seems so conceptually simple to something that's so conceptually difficult, called mate velo mate? There's a whole shal there. There's a whole gate called touching and not touching. And really what he wants to do is he wants to explain to us why the contraction leads to the creation of the Sefirot and how that happens. And so there's this whole long discussion which is very, very technically complex. It seems very over the top, like in its complexity, which is the Arizal's way of saying, okay, so how does this create vessels? Like, what does the contraction actually mean? It actually means the creation of the vessels of the Sefirot. And not the way that the infinite light is without limits, limitlessly. Now, this explains to us why when we talk about contraction, we don't mean that the infinite light is gone. On the contrary, we said that the light inside the Sefirot is unlimited. It's the vessel of the sphere that gives the limited aspect. So both of them work together. There's no such thing as God's infinite light is gone. It's present, but it's giving the life force to the sphere, and the sphere somehow is limiting it and showing only a certain aspect of the infinite light. Theoretically, somebody could say, well, maybe Hashem could make 20 more Sefirot, and there would be 20 other aspects and the answer is, of course he could.
Yeah.
And in his wisdom, there is 10.
There's 10.
וממילא מובן שהיא גם כן נעשית ונשפט כפי תמונת ומהות הכלי שעל ידה נשפט. Now he says that this infinite light, when it goes into the sphera, it's colored. Right? We said this.
Yes.
We said that the option that we're taking is that the vessel has a color.
Yes.
The water has no color.
Right.
But when you look at the water from the outside, it looks like it's colored in some way. So he says that the infinite light that's inside the vessel, inside the sphera, receives here he says the picture or the essence of the vessel. And that's how it seems to come out. So when we're talking about the sphere of chesed, from that are created creatures whose essence is loving kindness, is chesed. Kegon ha'ol v'amayim. 2 examples of things that are related to chesed. We said there's a whole book by Jektilia, everything that's connected to chesed. But 2 prime examples are light and water. These both exhibit characteristics of chesed, of loving kindness. They were made from the vessel of loving kindness. And we see that they're on the first day, right? The first day was a creation of the light, and the first day is the chesed. Then somebody would say, well, what about water? When was water created? But we see in the first day, in the second verse already says, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So the waters are already there on the first day.
Yeah.
So the split in the water is gvura, that's already the second day. And that's what he's going to say now. And the effluence that comes out of the vessel of might, of gvura, so on the second day came out this new creature, which is the firmament. And the firmament goes in the middle of the waters, and now it separates them. And that is a revelation of the limited aspect called
air and water are limitless in a sense.
In a sense, but they're still limited because our water and air is not.
No, but it's.
The reason we say about
I can't bring it up. But
the reason we say about air, about light and water, that they are from chesed.
I meant light, not.
It's okay. In Hebrew, it's almost the same word, or and avir.
Yeah, you're right.
And they're related also. So the reason we say that is because they both expand, because they seem to expand without a limit, especially light.
Yes.
But now we know that light also, at least according to, again, this is a very contentious point in physics. Does light expand without limits, or doesn't it? Does it have a top speed, or does it not have? Is it not limited in that sense? The Rebbe was very adamant that you can't say that anything is limited in that sense. In any case, so the firmament is very clear why this is a limitation, because you're dividing something into two, and it has to retain that division between the higher and lower waters. V'chen bishar kol hamidot, and so forth for all the rest of the Sefirot, which we call midot, and we call them midot because a midah literally means a measure. Right? So the bottom 7 Sefirot, from loving kindness to kingdom, from chesed to malchus, they're called midot. They're called measurements, or people will.
Those are the 7.
Those 7 are limited.
Yes.
Whereas in the mind, in the intellect, chokhmah and bina are not measurable in the same way. They're not the same type of. They're also Sefirot, but they're different. Here he's talking primarily about what went into the creation of our reality. והנה אף על פי שהאור אינסוף המובש במידת החסד משפיע השפעות מבחינת החסדים על ידי מידה זו איננו משתנה חס וחלילה מהותו הפשוט להיות בחינת מידה פרטית חס וחלילה. מכל מקום הרי לעניין זה יש שינוי בין זה האור להתלבשותו בבחינת גבורה, והוא במה שמתלבש בחסד משפיע חסדים, שמתלבש בגבורה משפיע גבורות. He's saying everything we've said, he's repeating it, that it's not that God forbid the light inside the Sefirah changes, it doesn't change, it's just that when it is brought out through the Sefirah to create something, then it takes on the characteristic of the Sefirah, the limited characteristic of the Sefirah. But it itself doesn't change. ולכן שפיר אמרו ששם kel הוא בחסד. And that is why they say the name Kel is in Chesed. דייקה ולא בגבורה, and not in Gvura, because אף על פי שכוונתנו בשם זה לבורא עולם, even though we are referring to God himself, מכל מקום, היינו שהבורא נקרא בשם זה כשמשפיע חסדים. This is his name when he is bringing out loving kindness. This is the name, so we're going after the result, after the product. The product is one of loving kindness, so we refer to Hashem at that time as Kel, because that's Chesed Kel Kol Hayom, the verses that we saw, because in the Tanakh, that name is associated with Chesed, but not because somehow Hashem became Kel, and it's something different than Elokim. No, these all refer to God himself. And when he passes judgment on the world, he's called Elokim, because that is the name associated with the sphere of Gvura. This first time he's mentioning that Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is associated with the sphere of Tiferes, with the sphere that we translate as beauty. ונמצא עתי שפיר שהשמות יש לכל אחד פעולה מיוחדת מזולתו. And now we are saying that the names are associated with a form of action, a type of action, and not even with the sphera itself. It's just that when he acts through this sphera, that's when we call him Kel. When he acts through this one, he's called Elokim. And Havaya is in Tiferes and Rachamim, compassion. ושם אלוקים בחינת דין, ושם כל אלוקה בחינת חסד, ואף על פי כן בכולם הכוונה לבורא יתברך ממש. In any case, we are always referring to God himself, but again using different names to refer to different type of actions, and this goes very well, and he will mention this, this will be tomorrow in chapter 5, with the Medrash, the famous Medrash that we talked about a few days ago, that Moshe asks Hashem, what is his name, what shall I tell them? And Hashem says, Ekia Asher Ekia. And the Medrash explains, he's saying, you will know me through my actions. Right. When I act with kindness, I'm called Kel. When I act with judgment, I'm called Elokim, and so on. So that's that Medrash. So he's built up to that to understand. The Medrash, though, doesn't mention Sefirot, and he had to include the Sefirot into the discussion, and now we can understand the Medrash better.
Okay.